2010's The A-Team was 20th Century Fox's attempt to launch the next big action movie franchise based on a beloved 80s property. Millions upon millions of dollars were dumped into the project with some big-name stars attached. However, the reviews were underwhelming, the film failed to turn a profit, and a sequel was never greenlit. So today, I want to take another look at this failed franchise starter, to explore the history, find out why it failed, and offer up some of my personal thoughts on the film. A feature film adaptation of the classic 1980s TV show, The A-Team, has been in the works since the mid-90s, with many different writers coming and going. It only started to get real traction in 2008, when 20th Century Fox announced that a film was hitting theaters on June 12th of 2009, with two-time Oscar-nominated filmmaker John Singleton directing. This adaptation was to be written by Michael Brandt and Derek Haas, the writers behind Wanted and 3:10 to Yuma. The rumored cast for this version had George Clooney in the lead role of Hannibal, Woody Harrelson portraying Murdoch, and Ice Cube for B.A. Baracus. However, in late 2008, Singleton left the project due to creative differences, and Fox pivoted the film into a different direction. Hitman and Swordfish screenwriter Skip Woods was then hired to pen the new script. Soon after, Joe Carnahan was attached to direct the picture, and he and his friend Brian Bloom polished up Woods' script. As for casting, Liam Neeson secured the lead role of Hannibal, Bradley Cooper was cast as Faceman, Sharlto Copley snagged the role of Murdoch, and Quentin Jackson was cast as B.A. Baracus. Other big names such as Jessica Biel and Patrick Wilson were also added. Dwight Schultz and Dirk Benedict from the original series did make a cameo in the film. However, they were mostly cut out of the theatrical release, and were included as a post-credit scene. Dirk Benedict would later regret this cameo, stating this in an interview: "You'll miss me if you blink. I kind of regret doing it because it's a non-part. They wanted to be able to say, oh, the original cast are in it, but we're not. It is 3 seconds. It's kind of insulting." Principal photography kicked off in the summer of 2009, shooting primarily around Canada. The film was initially greenlit at a budget of $80 million. But during production, it went up to $110 million. However, it was brought back down to $100 million after tax breaks. But when you add on marketing, distribution, and the theater's cuts, that meant the movie would need to make around 2.5 times that figure in order to be called a financial success. Leading up to its release, estimates had the opening weekend at around $30 to $35 million. The A-Team hit theaters on June 11th of 2010, underperforming with an opening weekend of only $25 million. It debuted second in the box office, right behind the Karate Kid remake with Jaden Smith. In the US, it went on to make $77 million, and overseas, it made $100 million for a total worldwide gross of $177 million. So it wasn't a total box office bomb, but it also wasn't really a financial success. So now that we know the background of the film, let's discuss a few reasons why it underperformed and what happened to the sequel. Leading up to the film's release, the whole cast all expressed an interest in doing a sequel. Additionally, Joe Carnahan said that he wanted to make another, but it would depend on the DVD and Blu-ray sales since the theatrical take wasn't as good as it needed to be. In March of 2011, Bradley Cooper officially confirmed that the film would not get a sequel since it didn't make enough money. There's lots of reasons why the film underperformed at the box office, and the big one that Joe Carnahan blames is the marketing. Here's a quote from the director in an interview with MTV. "What I ultimately think happened, because it was kind of a marketing misstep, is that people who should have seen that film in theaters didn't, because they thought it was maybe corny or campy or whatever. The people that weren't a fan of the show thought it was corny and stayed away thinking it wouldn't be anything other than that. What it is, though, is a lot different." I think Carnahan is spot on with this assessment, as the marketing for this film dropped the ball. Just like the movie itself, the trailer is a mess and is very over-edited. Additionally, they tried to modernize the story, which may have turned away fans of the original series. We also have to consider competition at the box office. The A-Team dropped the same exact day as another reboot/reimagining of a classic 80s property, that being The Karate Kid. The Karate Kid made $55 million in its opening weekend, doubling the A-Team's $25 million opening. And The Karate Kid was a movie that parents could take their kids to see. 2010 was also just a big year in general for over-the-top action schlock. At the same time the A-Team was in theaters, Prince of Persia, Robin Hood, Killers, and Night and Day were also playing. To quote Joshua Christian McCoy from Game Rant, A hypothetical action junkie could have just put on a blindfold and wandered into a multiplex and probably walked out moderately pleased. Additionally, although Liam Neeson was a sizable star, Bradley Cooper wasn't quite a household name yet. Yes, he did have The Hangover, but his other iconic films such as American Sniper, Silver Linings Playbook, and Guardians of the Galaxy would come out just a few years after. There's also other miscellaneous factors, such as it being released during the World Cup, which would contribute to the overseas market, and poor reviews. The film currently holds a rotten 48% critic and a fresh 66% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. It also has a 6.7 out of 10 on IMDb, a 2.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd, and a 47% on Metacritic. These less than stellar reviews contributed to poor word of mouth, and the film was forgotten about as quickly as it came. But did it deserve to be forgotten? And is this truly a bad movie? Well, let me share some of my thoughts on the project. I have very complicated feelings when it comes to 2010's The A-Team. On one hand, it's very fun and entertaining, but on the other hand, it's an absolute mess. I can't, in sound body and mind, call it a good movie, but it does go to show that a movie can be fun while not being good. What I respect about The A-Team is that it disregards the notion of realism right off the bat. In the first 5 minutes of the movie, B.A. Baracus kicks a guy and he flies several feet in the air and smashes into a window. And it only gets more ridiculous from there. Probably the most iconic scene is the one where they fly a tank into a lake, and that scene is just a great representation of the movie as a whole. The action in this movie is really hit or miss. There are some fun sequences like the flying tank, but a lot of the action is shot in the annoying mid-2000s shaky cam style that the Bourne movies made popular. I absolutely hate this style of action where the camera is constantly shaking and there's far too many sporadic cuts. Some of the action in this movie reminds me of that scene in Taken 3 where Liam Neeson jumps over a fence. The poor editing goes further than just the action scenes. There are many shots where the characters are teleporting around to different areas within the same scene, and there's an overall lack of continuity. The pacing is also all over the place, but this is also due to the writing. It feels like this movie starts 3 different times. We get the 20-minute opening sequence in Mexico, then we fast forward 8 years to the A-Team in Iraq going on a mission, and then we fast forward 6 months to them breaking out of prison. By the time we get to the actual meat of the story, we've already burned through a third of the screen time, which makes the main mission feel very short. There's also some half-assed character arcs which do not land at all. Baracus goes on a journey where he vows not to kill, but by the end he decides to kill the villain in order to save his friend. This arc was just poorly written and poorly acted. We also have a love side plot and arc with the character of Face. I just did not care about this at all, as the dialogue was beyond cheesy, there was very little chemistry between the actors, and it came off as an obligation to include a romance plot for Face just because he's supposed to be a suave womanizer. It bogged the film down and added very little. Patrick Wilson's character, Lynch, I could see being very divisive. He is so insanely over the top and cartoonish, but honestly, I loved it. He matched the vibe of the film, and every scene where he was chewing the scenery was so much fun. I will say this time and time again that Patrick Wilson is undervalued in Hollywood. He deserves better projects. I also really enjoyed Liam Neeson as Hannibal and Charlton Copley as Murdoch. They nailed their characters, and Copley brought a lot of humor to the flick. Even though I enjoyed much of the cast on their own individually, I think they failed to come together as a team. They were missing some natural chemistry and camaraderie. Many scenes came off like a group of students from a bunch of different friend groups that were forced to work together on a school project. They tried to write some witty banter for the team to play around with, but just like most of the dialogue in the film, it fell flat. But again, it's not like this movie is striving to be a work of art. It is striving to be a fun, goofy, over-the-top action film, and I would say it succeeded in spades. I know much of this review is coming off as harsh and negative, so I would just like to reiterate that I still enjoyed the movie. But I wouldn't call this film underrated, as it blends together with other forgettable action films of the era. Although I can understand why some would say it's underrated. It certainly has its charms and is worthy of that guilty pleasure title. You know what, I take back what I said earlier about this being a bad film. For the Steely Dan name drop alone, I'll push this into the good category. I would like to end this video with a review by Letterboxd user William, as I think it encapsulates what space in the universe this movie occupies. This is a movie your uncle watches when he sleeps on the couch after a fight with his wife. Through a combination of poor marketing and a bad release date, 2010's The A-Team went on to underperform at the box office. It simply did not make enough money to warrant a sequel, and for many people, the film was forgotten about. But whether or not it deserved to fail is still up for debate. So that's the story of 2010's The A-Team, the franchise that never was. But what are your thoughts on the film? Have you seen it? Do you like it? Hate it? I'd love to know in the comments below. This has been Tom from Isenhart Productions, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week. And here's a sneak peek of next week's video. They are seeing who can chew the scenery more. They didn't have to go this hard, but I'm glad they did.